Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending what is the time of the day that you are watching this session. I would like to greet everyone and welcome to this Azure Back to School session, how to get started and how to get started in certification to become an Azure Architect in 2024. Before starting our session, I would like to say big thank you for the organizers and a big shout out for Dwayne and Derek for organizing this event and all the sponsors who are making this happen. But most importantly, I want to thank everyone and each of you who will be dedicating some portion of your day to watch this video to get up to speed on how to get certified and become Azure Architect. Mainly, we are going to look into the change that happened to this exam in last one or two uh, in last year, namely in 2024. And usually you get those type of updates once or twice a year. And as you know, sometimes it's troublesome to get ready for this exam with all the digital distractions and updates that are coming up on our way. However, in this lightning talk, I will share tips and bits on how to focus on AZ-305, Designing Microsoft Azure Infrastructure Solutions exam, on its objectives and how you can get the help to prepare with the latest information. You will get all the official, free, and community-driven learning resources that will boost your knowledge in getting you prepared and help you to pass this important exam that you are, hoping for. So that said, let's look at the a little bit this in this slide. You have a bit of information about myself, aka Cloud Marathoner. I have been the MCT since last 17 years and still counting, and had an opportunity to practice the Microsoft Azure since its early start. I'm a Microsoft Azure MVP and very honored to be recognized by Microsoft for my contributions to the tech community. I'm a founder of the Cloud Marathoner blog and Cloud Marathoner movement in the LinkedIn that we have a special hashtag there. So if you never checked that one, please do. I also have sharings that I do on that blog post and as well as on the Microsoft Learn directory about cloud and Microsoft Azure journey roadmap and steps to focus toward building the automation. In my post, I do encourage everyone to share useful tips and deeds in your cloud journey and as well as help the beginners to succeed. I'm an active core member of Cloud Lunch and Learn, where you can see me moderating or speaking, and as well as I'm actively participate in a Cloud family events. I think that's enough about myself. Let's look what we are going to cover in this session. And again, if you want to get connected with me, please feel free to get in touch with me on LinkedIn. This is my profile here, or on the Twitter X, right? I'm also tweeting from time to time on this platform. All right, back to our slide here. What we'll cover in this today, in this session. So first, we will start with understanding where to start your journey of getting, into Microsoft Azure architecture, and then what are the changes that happen in 2024. After that, we will consider looking into learning resources, what type of learning resources you need to be aware and start looking into, and any additional material that can help you in that preparation for the exam. And there's also Q&A section where I wouldn't have a live Q&A session because this session is recorded based on the back to school, Azure back to school uh, presentation format. But you can always put that in the comments, or the best ways to reach me on the LinkedIn, or just tweet on the uh, Twitter X platform, and I will make sure that your question is addressed. So that said, let's get a few seconds here to get a brief introduction about T-Rex Solutions, a company where I'm employed, because we have some good news there for you. So T-Rex Solutions is the mid-sized company located in the East Coast, US, and it's in DMV area. We have a number of federal customers and help them with mission critical workloads and processes. We ran one of the biggest federal, I would say, cloud project in 2020 during the midst of the pandemic, where U.S. Census was required to run and gather the census-related information. In addition to that, we have very good relationship with cloud solution providers, and we look forward for cloud and data engineering team to grow. So if you are on the market as a cloud engineer who is experienced in one of the clouds, it can be, Microsoft Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud. If you are a passionate engineer and you look to do some meaningful, impactful work, please, check back with me. I can help you to navigate and see, uh, if the position that we have is actually matching what you are looking for, so that you can have a great leap in your career or have a different environment, challenging environment to do the impactful work. I think that's enough here about the TRX solutions. Again, if you have any questions, you can directly reach to the company or you can reach back to me, and I would be really happy to help you to get those things cleared. That said, let's look into certification journey. So in this diagram, as you see here, we have a couple of things. First, we start with the, let me see. So first, there are some prerequisites if you want to get Microsoft Azure Architect expert certification and credentials. There's a prerequisite in terms of you need to pass one of the Azure Administrator Associate exams here. So this is the exam number 104, and this is something where your Azure administration skills are measured. So this presentation today is not going to focus on it, but we are going to focus more on the next step, which is the getting prepared and passing the AZ-305 exam, which is designing Microsoft Azure infrastructure solutions. And while looking at that, there are certain experiences that are desired to have. So if you had some DevOps, Azure admin experience, that really helps in this exam and understanding the content, and then also making sure that you are getting the best value out of your training. There's also experience with Azure development, and DevOps is also very helpful in this process. There are self-study material as well that are here to help you, and I'm going to show some of them on the web page where you can retrieve them. And in addition to that, Microsoft also has official practice tests, and plus for the last year there's a new thing that called applied skills, where you can actually practice free of charge certain skills that you wanna be that you have studied for. For example, Azure monitoring is one of them, and I'll be showing that to you. And at the end of the day, once you're ready to pass the exam, of course, you just schedule the exam and you go for it. So let's look at some of these materials. Before, you know, going too far away, I want to mention that if you go to the exam page, which I'm sharing at the moment, you would be able to see all the prerequisites, who is intended to take this exam. But then under the tips here, you will see that you have AZ-305 exam prep videos. I use some of those videos actually and recommend it to my students. And sometimes they get updated, so have an eye on it. Next one is the study guide, which I'm also going to share, and exam sandbox, where you can get some type of exam uh, experience in terms of what to expect, what type of uh, UI and what type of environment to expect during the actual exam. And in addition to that, of course, there are some learning paths and materials under the page that you can check it out. Okay, so that said, let me go back here and let's look into the first, what this AZ-305 exam is actually trying to cover. So it basically consists of these four groups that you see on the slide. So we have first group where focus is toward designing the identity, governance, and monitoring solutions. Then we'll look into the group number 2, where we'll focus more on the storage solutions. And then group 3, respectively, focuses more on backup, business continuity solutions, and disaster recovery. And then group number 4 is one of the biggest actually portions of this exam objective, that focuses on designing the infrastructure solution. So on a high level, let's look at each of these groups so you can get some understanding, and I'll put some examples in between so it's not just lecturing but also getting some kind of practical information that you can use on day-to-day interactions. So the first one is designing identity, governance, and monitoring solutions. And when we talk about that, it's of course we first need to start with the monitoring and observability of the environment where we are implementing solution, and of course the logging is very important part of it. Then once you have this logging and observability and monitoring in place, then authentication and authorization solutions that you bring to your customers are also important part of overall system design that you need to put in place. And after those things in place, you need to also put some guardrails, put some design governance, how you want to govern the environment, and what type of procedures you want to make sure that everybody is following. That said, let's look at the first one, which is the monitoring solution and what we have in Azure that actually enables that. So in Azure, as some of you may know, we have Azure Monitoring Solution, and this is one of the topics that will come in exam domain objectives. Uh, as you know, this is the main monitoring solution that's available in Azure platform. It includes metrics, logs, traces, and changes, and it monitors the data sources illustrated on this diagram. So as you see here, we have a number of different places from where logs and metrics could be collected, and there's also custom. It's not all about Azure and the infrastructure, but there might be some custom sources, custom connections from where you can get this source of the metrics and logs and traces that you want to capture. So once they are in place, in Azure Monitoring collects them, and Azure Monitoring solution is built on top of a log analytics workspace, as you may already know. And log analytics is technology that powers it, and it comes with integrations to other managed services. For example, you can set up the integration to different services here, including the GitHub, Azure DevOps, and other integration services that are available. One of the ways to get hands-on practice is to consider those applied skills that I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video. And let's look at one of those, let's look at what is these applied skills are and what are the offerings that you can use for Azure monitoring specifically. So if I switch here, so usually applied skills, there are at the moment of this recording 27 applied skills that are available. Again, they are free of charge, and I'm going to share the URL as well on this video, and you can get the hands-on with Azure monitoring by trying one of them. For example, here, if I switch the screens again and show that lively, so here we have, let me see. So this is different. So if you go and type Azure Applied Skills, I think I closed that tab recently, and you'll see that here they are, Applied Skills. Okay, what are the applied skills? And you can get all this information. Okay, that's belong here. So we can also, let me see. Okay, so I'll go back to the slides here, and let's put that URL. No, this is the old URL. So if you type here deploy and configure Azure Monitor applied skills, then you should be able to see that there's an applied skill, right? That's called deploy and configure Azure Monitor. You can take the assessment. Again, it's free of charge. And then before taking assessment, my recommendation is to read this material that you may already be familiar with, but it's always helpful to read them, and then you will have 2 hours to complete the assessment. Once started, time is going to tick, so you need to make sure you are ready for that. And there's also information that once you take your first try, The next try you would have to wait 72 hours to take, but again, you can once you review what you missed and get familiar with provided learning modules, you are set to learn and test your learning knowledge, which is, I believe, great thing. Okay, I hope that's going to be very valuable in your preparations, but let's move to the next group, which is the group number 2, where we talk about where we covering the data storage related solutions and how to design them. Namely, there is a different type of data storage solutions. There are relational, non-relational, meaning the semi-structured and unstructured data that's that's covered, and there's also design part of how you want to design the data integration solutions. So if you look at one of the example of storage exam domain objectives, then we would see that we have an option here where we can look at select from relational or non-relational data. And basically when we speak about the relational data, it's about having some type of structure, right, in your data. It can be schema on your database, for example, that has certain tables, rows, columns, and keys. But when we talk about non-relational database, then it could be semi-structured or structured or unstructured. Sorry, semi-structured or unstructured. And the difference there is that, as you see here on the slide, when we talk about semi-structured, we are talking about certain documents that have certain formatting in place, certain styling, like it's an XML, JSON, or YAML file. And for unstructured data, you can think about the, photos, videos, any data that doesn't fall into semi-structured or into a structured data format. So once we look into that, let's look at you can also look into another applied skills called secure storage for Azure files and Azure blob storages, where you can practice those skills. Again, to show you where it is, if you go again and you type here secure storage for Azure files and Azure blob storage, and blob storage applied skills. Okay, blob storage. This is another applied skills that you can, try to get some hands-on practical skills, which is very, very, very highly recommended to try it on, especially after going through these learning modules and then trying that. Okay. So now let's look at some relational data services and products that you have in place and you can use in your day-to-day design. So first of all, this is the small kind of decision tree map where, depending on what's your solution and what are your requirements, you have some decisions to make. So if you need some more control on database software and as well as on the operating system level, if that's the case, of course, the option that's, as we see here, is to move it to the virtual machine and run that service as a infrastructure as a service, right? So on the VM. If we are not needed to have this control on the operating system level as well as the database system software itself, then you may use some database types, more of a PaaS system, right? Platform as a service. So if that database type is needed some type of document or graph key value type of database, then Cosmos DB could be the one solution. If you need relational database, then you can use from one of the open source solutions that are provided there in Azure, or it can be a Microsoft SQL or Azure SQL instance that you may provision and work on it. That said, let's look at the next group of exam objectives, which is the domain area number 3, where it talks about the backup solutions, disaster recovery, business continuity, and as well as the designing for high availability. So let's start looking at some of these disaster recovery models. So as we see here, we have different services for different scenarios. You are most probably already familiar with the Azure Site Recovery, which plays a very big important role on DR, on Azure environment. We have regular Azure backups, we have VM snapshots, and another solution here is MABS. So it stands for Microsoft Azure Backup Server, and it gives you enhanced backup capabilities to protect your virtual machines, files and folders, and as well as the workloads and more from disaster. Okay, that's it. Let's look at the final group here, which is targeting the um, exam domain objective on designing infrastructure solutions. And this is probably the biggest portion of this exam where you are going to be, asked questions that are covering compute solutions, migrations, application architecture, and as well as networking solutions. So let's look at the another kind of very helpful, I would say, diagram where it can help you to choose between compute services that are offered on Azure environment. Let's look at it. So here we see that diagram where we have a starting point where we can make a decision on what type of compute service is required for our customer for the problem that we are trying to solve. Oops. Yeah, and as we see, we start here with the option: is it something that's available for migrate, meaning that we are dealing with existing system, or we are dealing with a brand new system, means a green or brown field where we need to make the decision. And based on that decision, you would set on this decision tree, you go either toward lift and shift or more of a cloud optimized solution, or you do something totally from the beginning based on the architecture of the solution that your customer wants to bring into the cloud. And here we have a variety of solutions that, based on how you answer the questions, you can end up with, for example, Azure Web App Containers, or can end up with Azure Kubernetes Services. Okay, of course, this is not the only way that you need to run. There are certain instances where, based on the software and requirements, how application is to run, you may end up just, lift and shifting into the virtual machines. Next thing here, let's look at major changes that happened in this exam AZ-305 over this last year. And you would see that, some the ones that I scratched over, these are the changes that already happened. And there are some new ones that happened. So one of them is on a Microsoft Entra ID QR code sign-in. It's a new authentication method for the frontline workers that allows users to sign in with a QR code and a PIN on their mobile devices. And this feature is currently on preview, but it's expected to come to the exam after the October 18th. Then we have this Azure Multi-Factor Authentication Server Deprecations, or MFA Server Deprecation. So starting from the end of September, Azure MFA server will no longer be supported for multi-factor authentication requests. So what you need to do is that your organization should migrate their users' authentication data to the cloud-based Azure MFA service that's already in place. And another important thing that happened is the mandatory MFA for Microsoft 365 environments, which is by the beginning of the mid-October, Microsoft will enforce this mandatory MFA for the Microsoft Entra Admin Center, Microsoft Azure Portal, and Microsoft Intune Admin Centers to have in place. This is solely driven by the compliance of the environment, and it's one of the best practices that were overdue and needs to be happened over the needs to happen in this upcoming few weeks. Next, let's look at some resources that I find very useful. Some of them are actually, you may see on my prior presentation, but they are very good ones. But before listing all of them, I also want to mention one of the GitHub repositories that you can find under my GitHub. If you go to this GitHub repository under and click on repositories and just type architecture. You should be able to find awesome Azure Architecture repo. Let it load, and this is the part of the collection that my MVP friend Luke Murray started doing. So you would find a number of good Azure Architecture related official and community driven videos and posts that can help you to broaden your knowledge of Microsoft Azure Architecture. That said, let me return to the again, like this the uh, repo name. In addition to that, I want to, of course, make sure that you are aware about Microsoft Learn modules that are in place and they are part of the exam preparation. You also have this Cloud Marathoner study guide that I create on the Cloud Marathoner blog post, and it's going to a certain uh, updates at the moment. In addition to that, we have other uh, blogs from Thomas, and we have blogs from official practice tests. We have some videos from John Seville, which is, you may probably also very aware about. There are labs and exercises to get ready for the exam. We have Azure Architecture Center, which is one of the good places to start if you have no idea where to start with your architecture design. Uh, and then we have Microsoft Exam Emulator. That's next one that you should try before trying your exam. And we have free practice assessment that has been added by Microsoft. Before moving forward, I want to show Azure Architecture Center, so you are aware about this great resource. So um, for example, once you land on that page, browse Azure Architectures, you can type, for example, let's say you want to look into hub spoke network. So, and you would get some varieties of it. For example, here on the right side, we have one solution. Of course, it doesn't mean that that solution is going to be the ultimate solution that you want to take and use, but you can customize the solution, and sometimes they are provided with Visio file where you can do the change, but this can be a starting point depending on solution that you are trying to present to your customer. So as you see, this solution mainly based on some virtual machine workloads and how they have this hub network, right? That we have a hub subscription. I wouldn't say subscription, but it's a hub layer, because it's very possible that one subscription may not be enough to host all your hub resources, where you have your central management, security controls, and network flow. And then you have spoke areas, like you can call them spoke subscriptions, where you have your own networking that get peered into your hub networking. And then, of course, you have this Azure monitoring solution to make sure that you have a good visibility into what's happening in your environment. So I hope that's going to be helpful. Now, going back to our slides, in addition to all this, I want to also emphasize that there's case studies that will appear on your exam. If you are already know, that's great, but it's also very important to get ready to understand, digest, and answer those case studies, and be prepared a little bit for those type of questions. So for example, this case study is about as you see, there's an architecture on the left side, and there are certain questions that are asked, and there would be a number of, there could be a number of follow-up questions in addition to that that you need to answer. What I want to mention here is that this is just a sample uh, case study where, for this example, we have a company called Tailwind Traders, and that company is looking to update their website to include customer supplied product images in addition to the existing photos provided by the marketing. They believe that having more photos of products in use will give potential customers a better feel for how past customers or previous customers love their products after purchasing them, meaning that what type of feedback they provided, what was the satisfaction rate, and this customer want to have uh, they have certain requirements that they want to implement. So those requirements are reflected in the questions that we see on the left side here. So we have three questions here. Those are the requirement-driven questions that you need to answer. And then based on this sample case study, you put your answers. You kind of get prepared for this type of use case driven questions. To get you even better in this, kind of get some idea, there's a site called, let me see where it is. Yes, here it is. So we have this Microsoft Azure repo where we have these case studies. So as you see, there's a handful of them here on the left side. The one that I just shared was about case study on design and app architecture. And you can look into this one, for example. Then you have authentication and authorization solution where you have certain tasks and you have requirements. Not all of them have the diagram. And then you get some idea what to expect during this use case and case study related questions in your exam. Okay, again, there are a handful of them. I recommend to get familiar with all of them here. Okay, that said, in addition to all of this, let's look into next type of resources that you can look into in your exam preparation, and one of them is the LinkedIn platform videos. So this is, for example, the video on Azure Solution Architect Expert 305 Cert preparation for designing infrastructure solutions, and you are going to get the QCR code for this as you see on the screen. So you can also check all those four different portions of Azure exam videos in your LinkedIn subscription. In addition to that, I always encourage everyone to go and check the free, always free resources that Azure platform provides. There is a URL, you just type there Azure always free resources and you will get into that. If you never provision a new subscription in Azure, you can also get a free subscription for the next 30 days so you can have time to get to learn and practice it. And that's it. This is pretty much it. So because you are going to most probably watch this video presentation later during your leisure. I want to go through again what we covered here on this session and make a little bit overview what we just covered in the last 30 minutes. So we looked into where to start your Azure journey, right? Then we looked into what changed in 2024. Then we looked into learning resources for exam. We looked into Azure applied skills. We looked into training videos that are either as a post that are shared by community, or there are some on the LinkedIn community that you can use, and as well as the resource on the GitHub on GitHub platform that you can also utilize. And finally, there's a portion for Q&A, which if you are not able to do now, you are encouraged to get in touch with me on LinkedIn or Twitter X and get it done. So again, just type my name, you would be able to find me. To give you, if you are watching this session on your phone, I also have these QCR codes for your convenience, so you can scan them and get teaching. So again, this awesome Azure architecture repo that I shared, it's here. Then you have this video link that we shared on the LinkedIn platform for AZ-305 exam, and we also have this Microsoft Learn 305 modules these are the official modules, and as well as the blog post on the Cloud Marathoner. I hope this is a good source of information, and thank you everyone for joining this session today. It was my pleasure to have you all, and again I want to say big thank you to these event organizers, Dwayne and Derek Smith, for putting time into that and bringing that to the community. It's always takes some effort to organize this, bring the speakers to you, but most importantly, I want to say again, big thank you for watching this session. And for any questions that you have, as a Microsoft certified trainer and regional lead, I'm happy to help you to get prepared with all the available resources online. Thank you and have a great day. I hope you can pass your AZ-305 this year and make it a milestone in your career journey. Have a great day. Bye.